I'm Will, and I'm here to give the talk to you today about C++26 reflection. I chose this title, besides the fact that it's fun, because I hope some of the things I show you today feel a little bit like Source-ery. It sounds like a gimmick, but you can do some really surprising stuff with C++26 reflection. First, about me, just some interests and stuff. So I work for Trimble. This is all stuff you can talk to me about at the Burns. I'm interested in physics. I'm working on a project management tool. I put smart home stuff up on there because I know next to nothing about smart home stuff, but I need to redo all of the hodgepodge that I have at home. So if you know anything about smart home stuff, please talk to me at the Burns because I'd love to learn from you. I also help out with Andrew back there with the Python meetup that happens here in Denver. So I frequent those two. I would say Python and C++, they're my bread and butter. I couldn't pick one over the other. So as far as work, I work for Trimble Maps, which was formerly ALK Technologies. We have an app, Copilot, for truck navigation, which is previously I could just explain that to people. I could say, oh, we have an app called Copilot. But now, yes, that is true.
That's who Rob used to work for.
Yes, ALK Technologies. Yeah, we have a.
I didn't realize you guys had like siphoned them off.
Yep.
That's Rob Irving, the ex-co-host of CBB Cast that I'm referring to.
Yes, there was an ex-host of CPP Cast that used to work for ALK Technologies. I think like my engineering manager like knew him or something. Anyways, so for the gimmick, because nowadays everyone, if you say Copilot, they say, oh, Microsoft Copilot. I asked Microsoft Copilot about Trimble Copilot, and it couldn't tell me when it was created, but that's okay. I went ahead and I asked Gemini as well, just to see if it got it right. And I thought it was, I included this because Gemini gave a disclaimer at the end that says, no, this refers to the ALK Technologies navigation software, which is distinct from the later Microsoft Copilot AI tool. Yeah, I just thought that was funny. If you want to talk about anything on these slides, I'm happy to talk later about it on the board. But this is the outline of the document. There are three halves. The math inclined among you might say, wait, aren't those thirds? But there's a lot here. And the first part is presentation. The second part is kind of going over the reflection paper and the need to knows, I guess, for what's being introduced as far as the API. And the third half is just some code that I wrote and some stuff that I did. And we'll kind of run that Socratically, I guess. I guess we should start with a high-level definition of what reflection is. And we say a language is reflexive if it can reason about its own structure, I guess, loosely. I like this definition that I found online. It's not from Wikipedia, but I found it from a paper that's referenced on Wikipedia. Reflection is the integral ability for a program to observe or change its own code, as well as aspects of its programming language, syntax, semantics, or implementation, even at runtime. But that's reflection in general. What does this mean practically? What is C++26 reflection? So this is kind of the reflection 101 of what is the simplest thing you can do with reflection. C++26 reflection introduces two new operators, the reflection operator and the splicing operator. The reflection operator reflects your whatever token you're reflecting into the reflection domain. And the splicing operator does the opposite, and you can turn reflected information back into code that compiles and does stuff. So this is actually example one from the reflection paper. You can see all we're doing is we're grabbing the reflection of the type integer, and we're storing it. We're storing it in R. What type is R? That doesn't matter quite yet. But then what are we doing with R? We're splicing it back into a type that we're assigning X to. The first two lines of that example make sense. Good. You can skip the middleman and you can take the splice of a reflection directly.
That's literally exactly as just putting car right there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that line 3, it maybe could be 2 examples or one simpler example, but this is example 1 of the paper, and you could take line 3 on its own. You're just saying the splice of the reflection of char
Is
is your type. You're declaring y, and then you're assigning y to the char A.
When you say that these are operators, are these overloadable? Like, can you define an operator here's?
No, you cannot.
Yeah.
They are operators. That's a very good question, but no, they are not overloadable. That would be,
That's good.
yeah. You got a question?
You autoed R here, but what is the type of R?
Next slide. Very good question. Next slide.
Is there ever a reason to do line 3? Like, is there ever?
No.
Okay.
Illustrative only.
Also, this is a good time to say, you can ask questions on any slide. If I get more than like 60 seconds of questions on a slide, I'm gonna have to move on and say burns. Yeah.
I might be getting ahead of things, but what if the type here is an alias and not a real type? Is there any
It
difference
gives
in
you a
behavior?
separate reflection, but there is a de-alias function in the API that you can use to compare them. Yeah. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. The splicing operator, there's actually kind of 2 forms of the splicing operator. There's the type name version of it, and then there's also a template ID version of it, I think. But you can drop the type name and type only context. So previously we didn't have a type only context, but in this example, we're using, which gives us a type only context. And you see, we don't have the type name here. We're just using I like to see it as like 2 happy faces on either side of what you're splicing. I hope that I've made you all see that as well.
So I have
Yeah.
a question.
Just dropping the type name is from C++ 23, right? It's not reflection related particularly.
I actually don't know.
I think Ben's right. Because there's been a few papers that have been like, make type name less necessary.
If you couldn't hear what Ben said in the recording, the type name only context thing and being able to implicitly have type name on line 2 and 3 here might have actually been a pre-reflection C++ 23 thing. Yeah. I'll give you a, you're gonna get one eventually, so I'll give you. Would you like one? Okay. They're a bit heavy. I'm not gonna throw them.
That's fine.
Okay, so we can drop type name.
One for each person.
Yeah, we're really not far off.
It doesn't matter why we can drop type name, I guess. That's not the point here, but you'll see the splicing operator without type name all over. And just don't get confused, I guess. So the question you asked, which I'll give you a PowerPoint if you want, is what type is auto here? And auto is, sure. Auto is a new type, and I don't quote me on this, but I think the only type introduced with the reflection spec. It's in the namespace stood meta. That's also the header we're going to see all the API stuff in is meta. And the type is called info. It's defined in a bit of an oddball way, but it makes sense because it's designed to be as general as possible. It's actually defined as the decl type of the reflection of the global namespace. Very interesting. So it is a single type that you can assimilate any source code's reflection info into. Does anyone here watch Star Trek? Can you think of something from Star Trek that assimilates everything into?
Transporter.
That's true. The boards. I can't give you a,
I already have one, so.
No, it's kind of like the Borg of, Plus.
You will be typist.
Jason says you will be type assimilated. And I think this is actually kind of important because from a user perspective, from my messing around with reflection, I found this to be a very good user experience. And they said as much in the paper, they explained why they designed it this way. And I'll read part of this, but not all of it, because I think it is very important. They say perhaps the most common suggestion made regarding the framework outlined in the paper is to switch from the single meta info type to a family of types covering various language elements, like having a variable type and a type. We believe that doing so would be a mistake with very serious consequences for the future of C++. Specifically, it would codify the language design into the type system. So doing this would make implementers' jobs harder. It would, in future versions of the standard, if new language formalisms are created, you'd have to go back and work it into reflection. So this just makes things easier. Are there any questions before I move on to this slide? Are there any questions about, I guess, what auto was in this example? I know it's still sort of vague, but now you know what it is. Yeah, question.
Do you know if the meta info type ever actually exists at runtime?
I believe it cannot.
Yeah, okay.
It can only exist in a const-eval context. And Andrew, you had a question?
How do you operate on this meta or info type? Does it have properties to it, or are there like functions within the meta library that allows you to work with it?
That is a good question. That's the second part of what you said is exactly correct. It does have internally, the way it's implemented, it does have properties because of course it has to, but it has no properties that you can access as the compiler user directly. There are, however, a plethora of functions in the reflection API that you feed the type info, or you feed the info type to, and it gives you information about what you're reflecting on. You can have a power bank if you want.
Yay.
Okay. So I also thought I would throw a slide in about why this is useful before we get too into the weeds of the actual API. Because this has been a long time coming for C++. People have been asking for reflection for decades, right? And it's finally, again, I don't know that C++ 26 is finalized, but it has made it into.
It was just finalized.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, it's in C++ 26.
It's
And I'm sure it was a lot of, it looks like it was an inordinate amount of work to get it into the language, but they seem to have done a very good job. And already 2 of the big 3 compilers support it. You may have messed around, the easiest way to mess around with reflection currently is to go to Compiler Explorer, godbolt.org. And there is a branch of Clang that has the reflection implementation. GCC got their implementation merged at the start of this year. And I've also, I have that built locally. And if you're interested in messing around with this, I can share a Docker file with all of the, everything you need to build it locally and mess around with it currently. It's in GCC 16. So, but C++ is far from the
Hand over there.
yeah.
Yeah, so I thought you were going to the next slide, so I wanted.
No, sorry. I faked you out. C++ is very far from the first language to have reflective capabilities, right? So the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about reflection is like get adder in Python. You could take a Py object and you can just pull out all of the attributes. You don't have to do anything special. It just works. Java has its whole reflection thing. C# and .NET have system.reflection, which I haven't personally used, but it seems like a nice tool. Lots of languages also use reflection for schema generation, ORMs, object relational models. Like if you are writing a C++ type and you also need to throw it into a database and you don't want to have to rewrite the data definition language, the SQL you need to create all the tables and stuff, you can generate that with reflection. Python has tons of tools for that. C# has tons of tools for that. Go has Gorm, which I know nothing about, but I threw in because I thought the name was funny.
It's okay.
And there are things like this for C++, to be clear. But they often rely on macros, often heavily. And reflection is a great way to cut down on the necessity of macros, I think. Things like PyBind exist, but again, uses macros. Not that that is a, sometimes it's necessary, but as we know, it's nice to avoid macros. I don't know which one of you was first.
Yeah, I'll take it. Do you know any projects that are replacing PyBind with reflections in like a beta?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I know PyBind is a fork of boost.python, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if someone forks it and throws reflection at it. Because it's already a very nice library, don't get me wrong. It's just that now we have the power to make it even simpler, likely. Yeah.
I think in all of these examples, or at least the ones that I've used, reflection in these languages come with a pretty big performance hit. Is the same true for C++? Does reflection come with the same kind of performance implications as it does for these examples?
A good question. C++ 26 reflection as provided by the API is compile time only. I haven't tried compiling any big projects with it, but I have to assume that there is a compile time hit. But there is no runtime hit. Now, you can use C++ 26 reflection and store the information at compile time to use later at runtime. The hit that incurs is kind of up to you. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on what you were just talking about. A lot of the places, particularly in C# and Go, where I've had to deal with reflections, has been dealing with random foreign code at runtime to go figure out what the hell is it and how do I use it. And if this is compile time only, and they weren't polite enough to include all that metadata, all that data for me, how do you deal with that? Or is this next version kind of thing?
I don't think it's a next version kind of thing. I think that what we have with reflection is we have all the tools that the designers of reflection thought were reasonable to give to us. And you can absolutely, as I said, you can store information later and you could handle something like that. But if you don't do that, if you do it poorly, it could turn into a mess, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I'll say what the use case was, here's this random library, go figure out how to use it at runtime because some user ported in and said, go do this. So can you do something like that with the C26 reflection?
Sure. When it comes to APIs, that's actually something I was looking into for this talk. You could store function pointers. I mean, we already do that. We have vtables, but then you could also store reflection information about what those function pointers are referring to and what capabilities the API has that you could load at runtime. So that's absolutely possible.
Well, but you're talking about like
Truly
someone
third
doing
party.
like a load library at runtime.
Right. Yeah.
Right, where
Yeah.
you don't
It's
know what
completely
the
foreign.
headers are, you don't know what the source files are, you just have, oh, I
I got an elf file.
I have a file and I can, there's functions in here, I can
Right.
call them, but I don't know what they are.
Right.
we can talk about that later, because I do have,
Okay.
burns, but also I do have a little bit of, I have something half baked that I wasn't really going to talk about, maybe at the very end.
Oh, you'll get.
Yeah,
I
we'll
will say, what
Okay,
you're
I-
saying.
yep.
What you're saying, it seems like you can't use this in that scenario. Like if you don't have access to the headers for the library that you're being given. Like if you have access to the headers, you can do a compile time ingestion step. You could even at runtime, run the compiler against those headers and, generate that information. But if you don't have the headers, I don't see how you can use the compile time reflection stuff on a library that you load at runtime.
I think that you absolutely, my opinion from using reflection is that you absolutely can do that for types. For other things like what exactly, what types of function takes, I'm less certain about that. But I think that you absolutely can do a form of that with reflection. But again, you're storing this information yourself. This doesn't come out of the box.
I'm gonna agree with you without having actually tried it, that I feel like something along COM or FFI could be made more better with these mechanisms.
Yes,
Sure.
I think that is a fair assessment.
The problem is the consumer would have to already know about the types that the provider is providing. Right?
If you don't have the header, you can't compile it.
Right.
If you have a library and you don't have a header, your compiler can't figure out what it's supposed to do in order to give you functions to call,
But
in order to then get linked.
in a normal DL open kind of scenario, you agree on what the interface is going to be. It's some generic function that you know how to DL open and DL send.
Right, you either have your own declaration that happens to match theirs, or they gave you a header that tells you what you can call.
But hypothetically, you could take the common interface that you agree on has the type information that you can suck out and say this function number 1 takes these 4 types. And then hypothetically, you could have precompiled function pointers that match all of the possible combinations of types that could be provided to you. Then you could.
If they exported that, but
Right.
but
this
You,
is-
you, okay, to answer both of what you're saying, you would need to agree at least on one initial function, which you would get the reflection information from.
Mhm.
Right. But then I feel like you can figure it out from there, at least what goes into the types. And to some extent, well, no, you can figure out how the types are packed because that's part of the API. You can only do it for aggregate types, I believe. But you can determine what types or what members are in your types and how they are packed so that you could pass information back and forth.
from an ELF library, that sounds magic. Because the ELF library isn't visible to the compiler, it's only visible to the linker.
You would need to agree, your linker would need to agree on an initial function that gives you that reflection. Yeah, okay, we've gotten a little, I wanted to take a lot of questions on the slide, but we've gotten a little bit off of what the slide was designed for. So you can both take a power bank if you want. So are there any other questions about sort of what you can do with reflection at a high level? I know it is complicated and weird and hard to reason about. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just want to make a comment. I think it may be possible to contrive a system that could do that type of runtime reflection, but I do not think that's the intent of C++ 26 reflection. So
I think so.
I think the
that's
takeaway is
exactly
that
right.
that's not like, sure, you can craft the thing that does that with or without reflection. Reflection might make it easier, but that's not the point of C++ 26.
Yeah, that's what I just realized. Everything I was
Yes.
supposed to, with you don't need reflection for it.
Yeah,
Anything I
that
was
was
saying.
as much.
Power bank?
Sure.
And then one more, and then I have to move on to this slide.
I'm always interested in like prior art. Is there another, like, the languages you list, I think all of the reflection mechanisms are type reflection mechanisms. Is there another language you're aware of that has a compile time reflection mechanism along the lines of C++? Like what C++ just got?
I want to say that some of Java's reflection capabilities are compile time, but I could be wrong about that.
I think it's
This
like
is the ultimate reflected.
.NET, it's all runtime.
I'm sure .NET's all runtime. Yeah.
I think Java is like .NET as well, that it's all runtime.
Okay.
That was my experience.
Do you have a comment on that?
I'm sorry, this is the last slide you're gonna be allowed to present.
Yeah, okay, yeah, well,
Getting
yeah.
back on that, like, how would you say between like REST, content macros versus, what would be the distinction?
I don't know enough about Rust to answer that question. I wish I did, but I don't. We can talk about it at the bonus. All right, cool. So I remember I said there's 3 halves to this talk. This is, I think, the most important slide in the first half. And I'm glad that we spent some time on it, even though there were some tangents. Okay, I want to ask you it's not really a riddle, but a question sort of related to the last slide. Who here has used Qt? There is no correct way to say that and pronounce it. Okay, what? That's more than
That's not true. The official pronunciation is cute.
I remember reading online that even the Qt developers argued about that, but I could be wrong.
Their websites.
You got rid of that.
There's no consensus in the room either.
Very true.
Jason does disagree with me, but
When GIF is correct, yes.
yes. Okay. Who here has used Unreal Engine? Okay, that's about what I expected. Can you think of anything like reflective, like tooling wise, that the two have in common?
Do they both have 2-stage compilers?
I'll give you a power bank. Does anyone know specifically what tools I'm referring to?
Yeah.
That's one.
Cute
I
mod.
have a Unreal Engine is calling it these days.
So what is it called?
Unreal.
You know it. I'm sure you've seen it before. Okay, I didn't know there was more than one, so.
No, not cute and Unreal.
Oh, yeah. Does anyone know the name of the Unreal one?
I don't
You-
remember. It's
you
been
script.
just long enough that it's fallen out of.
Well, you've already gotten a power bank,
I
so.
know, I don't.
Unreal, it's for blueprinting. Unreal header tool. So, yeah, they have 2-stage compilers. They can be a bit tricky to work with, to be honest. I've worked with Mock. I have not really worked with the Unreal header tool. But the purpose of Mock is to for your types that are signals and slots enabled for the Qt signals and slots, it injects some stuff that makes it work. The purpose of the Unreal header tool is to take your C++ definitions, and if they're written correctly, it exposes it to the blueprinting system, which is their like drag and drop programming system. They're both very cool tools. Don't get me wrong. They can be temperamental. At least I know that firsthand for Qt. But my hypothesis here is that you can use some of the compile time reflection capabilities in C++26 to at least partially replace both of these. You may not be able to entirely replace either, but there's definitely you could design something around compile time C++ reflection that would lessen the need to have third-party tools that add complexity to your build processes. So another important slide, I guess, in this first third is sort of what can we do with reflection and what can't we do? Has some limitations that are intentionally designed into the spec. Maybe the biggest being that it's compile time reflection only, but as we've sort of discussed, you can store all that information for runtime and do whatever you want with it, right? But at compile time, you can get almost anything you want about your types and variables. You can do control flow. I guess the best way is to put the best thing is to say about it in a const-eval context with information, reflected information about your types. Very useful. We'll see a lot of that in a little bit. And you can define your own types with reflected with information that you take and then splice into a type, but you can only do it for aggregate types. You can't do it for more complex, like general types that have inheritance hierarchies. You can't do that. It has to be aggregate. It has to have all of its members exposed, but you can take information at compile time and turn it into types with reflection. You can't create identifiers out of thin air. Like you can't name a class based off reflected information. You can't, I thought it would be interesting that if you could like create enumerations and sort of like make an enumeration out of a list of strings or char arrays. You can't do that. You can't, everything that you reflect is immutable, so you can't modify existing definitions. So there's a lot of walls you run into, but these walls are usually there to keep you safe, I feel like, and keep things less complex than they would be otherwise. Are there any questions about this?
Can it go the other way with an enumeration?
Yes, absolutely. You can. When I say introspection on almost anything about types and variables, you can grab the enumerators of an enumeration and you can do whatever you want with it.
So you can generate all of the strings without having macros.
Yes, and that is huge. Don't get me wrong. You just can't take a list of, you can't go the other way and take a list of strings and turn it into an enum. Yeah, Chris?
You've used the word splicing a few times. Can you talk more about what exactly that means?
The opposite of reflecting. That was the little happy face.
That's
Happy
the
robot
category of
operator.
interfunctors kind of definition.
That's a category of what?
That's like the monad definition where it's true, but not necessarily.
Anything like a monad is a monad.
Could you explain it in a few more words what the opposite of?
You know, you're not allowed to use the M word in my VDOT.
Trying to explain it. He used it as an analogy for why
I'm
this was
just
bad.
connoting.
Chris is being escorted out of the room for bringing up monads.
Yeah, it's literal lifting and lowering.
Thank you for making this a little less dry, because I know reflection it's complicated and hard to reason about, but I'm going to show you some cool stuff you can do with it after this, so I hope it's worth it. In a few more words, you have the paper calls it the grammar domain and the reflection domain. Grammar domain sounds fancy. That is the code that you write. When you use the reflection operator, you get the info type, as we discussed earlier. Now you're in the reflection domain. You can't use anything in the reflection domain at runtime. It has to be constant value only. The splicing operator takes information from the reflection domain and generates code.
Grammar.
Generates grammar and back to the grammatical domain. Then the other parts of the compiler that parse your code and optimize your code use. Okay. Any other questions about that? Because the last thing, I will show you the synopsis in the paper. This is the API.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sir.
so we can't splice identifiers, but does it provide a way to give us a unique identifier?
Generate one.
Generate one. Like if I'm generating a class, how do I name its members?
You need to declare it first, as far as I can tell. As far as I know, you have to declare it first, but leave it undefined.
Sure.
And then you can generate the member info.
Let the member.
But the names of the members,
It has to be hard
do
coded.
they have to be hard coded? How do I do variadic members, things like that?
You can take, perhaps identifier is the wrong word. You can generate member names.
Okay,
You can't generate the names of types, because a member isn't a type.
okay. Right,
Yeah,
right.
you cannot generate the
So you
names.
can
of
generate
types.
member names.
Yes, you can generate member
Well,
names.
that means you could fake an enumeration.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You might be able to, yeah. You might be able to fake an enumeration with a aggregate class and use its member names. I'd have to think more about that. And that's getting into the third half of this talk, which we're at the end of the first half, so. Sorry, I do want to show you the paper. This is the synopsis. There is a lot here. Oh, yes, sorry. I don't do that. I hit Control Plus. All right, okay. So there is a lot here. My point, don't look at it, because my point is that you don't need to know everything here to write useful reflection code. You have a question?
Oh, you can, I guess, just change the revision in the top from 4 to 13, and then you'll get the new names. 'Cause I saw you said that.
Thank you. Okay, I was going to, that threw me a lot early on when I was working on this. How do I change the revision?
Yeah, in the URL, so R4, change to R13.
Thank you so much.
Is 13 what was actually accepted?
Yes, or at least it was the latest version as of when it was merged into GCC 16.
That
Not necessarily exactly right, but
it's probably, yeah.
Cool. Version 4 is what I bookmarked.
yeah.
And yes.
Can we all just take a moment to admire the beauty of all the consti-vel?
It's good. It's entirely a consti fact.
It's amazing. It's pretty much the only part of the standard that uses consti-vel at all, in fact.
It's very cool.
I'm waiting for your consti-vel t-shirt. I haven't made a consti-vel t-shirt yet. Could be the Chiquita Banana one.
So this is actually a good segue from what Chris brought up. What is splicing? What is the reflection domain? These are all functions that you obviously from the API, you have to have a meta info. Each of these are meta infos, right? This is in the meta namespace. You have to have a meta info to call each of these. That means you have to have reflected something about your code. And if what you have reflected is a class type, you can use, for example, you can use these to get the members of that class type.
That happens to be an enumeration.
With bases.
Fail to compile if it's an invalid input.
It gives you some very crazy messages.
Very explicitly well checked. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's not just an empty set you get back.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, is it returning an empty set for an invalid input, or is it a compiled pair?
Here's what you can look at. I think on members is public, is protected, is private, is virtual. Like I said, there is a lot here. Okay, that's it. That's the end of part 1 of the talk. I think we're actually making decent time despite it not seeming as such. Were there any questions about the paper, about what reflection is? About how you would use reflection? Okay, what is this going to print? I have something concrete for you for once. We have a namespace with a type in it called myType. It has 3 members. Our main function, which is a little bit cut off, we declare a myType called obj. I guess the default constructor is what gets run, but that doesn't super matter here. And we're outputting the identifier of myType, and then the identifier of the reflection of obj. Sorry, the identifier of the reflection of myType, and then the identifier of the reflection of obj. The identifiers, respectively, are myType and obj. So, straightforward, right? Already very useful because you might want to know, you might just want that information, what a type is named for debugging purposes, right? For an error message.
But what if,
Andrew?
I had a question, but I figured it out. I was like, why are you running this in root? And then I realized you're in a Docker container.
Yes. That's, I was building like trunk of GCC, so I have, I'll run stuff for you later in a Docker container, and it'll be fun. Yes, the stuff that I was working on, I figured I would run up to the limits of Compiler Explorer, but I don't know what those are.
Compile time limits?
How many internal compiler errors did you cause out of curiosity?
Surprisingly few. A lot of errors that were user error and me not understanding things. I saw a few, internal compiler errors. Oh, actually, there was something about template core, which isn't exactly reflection, that was giving me, internal compiler error that they fixed at some point. And some of my code that wasn't working, that I said, why doesn't this work? Started working. Because again, I was on the trunk of GCC. So yeah, okay. Anyways, we also have type of. What do we think this is going to do? Now we're printing the display string of the type of the reflection of obj.
The same as before.
For example, the second line will be the same as before, right? But
No display string of identifier.
the line here, we're grabbing the type and then getting the display string of that type.
My type, example.
Ah, there we go.
So slightly disappointed.
Yeah, it would be funny if it started with the 2 colons for the global namespace. Okay.
Obj wouldn't be in main.
You can't explicitly namespace a function.
Yeah,
Strong
functions
function
are,
name.
yeah.
So I think that's probably why it's not.
So it's not distinguishable.
It's context dependent.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay. The next thing I guess you need to know is a lot of the functions for, or the API functions for iteration, like members of, bases of, non-static data members of, they take what's called an access context. Because if you want to iterate the members of a class, you need to know, do I want all of the members, the public, protected, private? Do I want only the ones that I'm supposed to have access to at the current point in the program? Do I want only the public ones? And so you usually, what I normally tend to do is grab the current access context. If you want to see everything, you should grab the unchecked access context. You'll see this later. This is an additional type that you pass into some of these functions. Sorry, searching is going to get me nowhere. You'll see it later. As I said earlier, another big one is that we can define aggregate types. And when you define an aggregate type, you need to provide it a list of what's called the member info, which contains the type of the member, name of the member, the alignment of the member, the data alignment, like the byte alignment, and the attributes of the member.
So does type include things like const or
can you have a const member in a aggregate type?
Yes.
I want to say no.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
Yes.
If you initialize it.
Oh, like just make it non-aggregate.
Definition.
Yeah, that's the question. So it's not accurate. I don't know.
The question was, where would const fall in this? I was going to point out that you might think, oh, what about like public, private, protected? Well, an aggregate type is not allowed to have private members. Is that true?
That's correct.
Yeah. So
but you can have const or reference.
my point is that some stuff is intentionally left out of this, and yeah, I think const and whether something is a reference are actually part of the type. I think that's correct. I'll give you correct enough for a battery bank.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah, cool.
because attributes are literally just the,
Yeah, question.
yeah.
Could you use this like name tuple in Python for define aggregate? That'd be a valid use case.
I think so, if you stored the names for later consumption. Yeah, then.
Can you do bit field members?
Oh my God. Not of those, the
I
four
would-
things.
I'm not gonna definitively say you can't, which is a lot of negatives. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing anything about bit fields.
Maybe your line
Can aggregates have bit fields? I don't know. We already asked if they could have const or reference members.
C has bit fields.
I know
This
that
C does have bit fields.
when you enumerate the numbers, you can get the offset of them. I don't know if that means that you can.
Yeah, that's the alignment.
Yeah, that's gonna be in bytes though, not in bits.
Yeah.
Maybe it's floating point.
Offset is not exactly, alignment tells you the multiple that the address has to be.
Yeah,
But offset is how many bytes into the structure is the bit.
Yes, you are correct. You can piece together the alignment or the offset from the
Whether or not it's
alignment.
allowed in aggregate, I don't think.
Yeah,
that-
but
Plus the width of the type.
there's already like macros that will give you the offset of, so I'm pretty sure somewhere in this, they had to have defined that.
I mean, offset of is a standard library function. You don't need a macro as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it
there's
used to
something
be
in
a
the
macro.
macro.
Yeah.
It's even well defined since.
Okay,
49.
we will see more of this later, so I guess I'll move on from this and blew through that. We'll move on to the third half of this talk.
I'm looking for definition of
And I actually, so I've published all of the code that I'm going to show you. Okay, most of the code that I'm going to show you on GitHub. So I will link it to you later. But I have some fun examples where we're actually going to generate some things like data definition language for SQL. Some stuff that would be useful for documentation generation. We'll generate some JSON. So this is where it's sort of, it's what you all are interested in seeing. But I think the first thing that I will show you is,
Quote Jason.
yes, I will zoom. Thanks, Rohan. I do appreciate the reminder because
Can you change color schemes?
You have access.
I am going to use the terminal, so.
I use solarized dark. Can you change the solarized dark?
I'm not entertaining any, I'm going to turn it to light mode
Light mode would be superior. Yeah, light mode is actually good for something like this.
for presenting.
Yeah. So much easier to read.
Boo.
You're stuck with the colors that I've chosen.
That's
Is this truly,
this better, but.
is this truly illegible to anyone? Should I zoom in more?
Make it a little bit.
Little?
And on YouTube, don't rapidly change between light mode and dark mode, just so you know. People
Okay.
complain about that.
No.
Jason's like, I read all the.
You have to
comments.
you have to like fade between them.
I try to just stay in dark mode so people don't complain at me, honestly. I even use the dark reader plugin for Firefox that makes everything dark. mode.
I'm glad my alts have been working.
So,
Just one person at a time, you go harassing you.
we have a type and we want to generate a SQL insert statement for said type. That was a tongue twister. What we can do, so I'm just taking a const reference, or excuse me, this is the output. Oh, no, sorry. What it outputs is a char array. It takes a const reference as input. And of course, what does an insert statement start with, but insert into, right? And then we're taking the identifier of the reflection of T. That just means we're going to make the table name whatever the name of the type is. Grab the current access context. And what we're going to do is define a static array of the non-static data members of T, because we want each one of those members to be a column in our table, right? We separate them with commas. And then for an insert statement for data definition language, what do you need? You need a,
Can you clarify why you're using define static array there? Because it looks like you're using it to loop over.
I'm doing template for each static each non-static data member of
Sure.
T.
But can't you, what's the type returned by non-static members of? Is it not already a
Vector.
range you can?
It's a vector.
So can you not already?
Do a template for over a vector?
No, not over a vector.
But do you need to do template for it all? Can't you just do four? Can't you just do a range? Range four.
No, because he needs to do the splice inside it.
This is all in a constant context.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So,
I hit every single one of these. Yeah.
yeah,
That's annoying.
it is a little bit. I do wish you could just use non-static data members of directly in a constant val context, but you'll see a lot of defined static array. That is a good question, Ben.
Why doesn't it return an array instead of a vector? You can't modify it. Can you modify the thing returned by non-static
No.
members of?
That would,
You cannot.
that would like magnify the compilation cost, right? Because they'd all have to be sized arrays,
Types,
right?
Yeah.
I think that's why they did.
Yeah,
Well, but
that is an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah,
point.
yeah. That's doing it
You have to do it
anyway.
anyway, yeah. So they just make you do it.
So anyways, for an insert statement, we need what we want to name each column, but then we need the type of the column, right? So I have this helper function. That does conversion from value to a in SQL, what the value would be as a string, right? So for example, if we have context for if it's a bool, if it's true, we return the string true. If it's false, we return the string false. If it's this is fun. If it's integral, we use chars.
So.
Yeah.
What you're doing here is you're at compile time generating a SQL statement for a particular compile time struct with a set of compile time values in it. So you're not just generating a generic insert statement that'll work for that type at runtime. You're saying for this particular instantiation of this compile time type, I want an insert statement that will work for exactly those values. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So you have
If I'm
to,
understanding what you're saying.
so you have to have the values at compile time.
Yes.
This is,
I'll show you how I'm calling it. but yes.
This is not an insert statement with the placeholders for you to use at runtime.
No,
It's a
I also
compile
have
time.
a create table statement, I believe.
yeah, I was
but-
gonna say, I've done exactly this to create table in a systematic way, and then you can also like validate that the table that you have existing matches the struct that you were provided. And that's, I haven't done the insert thing, but the create
Yeah.
table and make sure that your table aligns with your struct. Very useful.
Reflection.
Yeah.
Cool. It is, I also have,
There's like a runtime component to check.
yeah, yeah. I also have, this, which we'll see in a minute, where, you convert. We do sort of the same thing as below, but we're converting it to the data definition language type for the C++ type. So,
How carefully did you have to order those?
oh, very, I'm actually asked because why did I do Boolean first? I don't know. I want to give a power bank away. What, does anyone know why I had to put, is same, bool before is same, integral specifically? Yeah, bools are integral types.
Implicit conversion.
Did you try
No, they
this?
just are.
No, they are.
Did you try this as an overload set? Did
All right,
that-
what is an overload set?
like a function that would take, I guess in this context, it doesn't make sense. In the other context where you're passing it in as the value of the function.
If you can do that in a constant val context, that would work as well. Yeah,
I was just curious if I had the same question.
yeah. I mean, here I'm just doing it as a template function where you inspect the type, but you could probably do it as an overload set if I'm understanding that
That
correctly.
could be a context express.
Yeah.
So let's see how this is used. So I have an example to go along with these. So we have this structure, my type. Let me make that go away. it has some members. And I'm doing sort of a context for two-step here where I remember this returns a fixed width char array, but then we can shrink that to the size that we need it to be for the insert statement. Or the type statement, the type DDL. So the first thing we do is we call generate type DDL with our type. And then we call this is just a helper function I threw into, it's in a utility header. It's if you aren't familiar with the context for two-step, I know a very good video on that technique exactly. But that's not the point of this. The point is that we're taking the output of this and then printing it out. And what are we going to get? The first thing is we get our DDL create table statement. But then the second thing that we do is we call that function I was showing you first, the insert statement function. And as long as you're again, someone pointed out you're doing this you have to know the values at compile time. This has to be context-per, but as long as we know the values, we actually get the values back in our insert statement. And I am missing a closing parentheses, so that would not work. But you get the point. Yeah.
Is there any way, even if it's convoluted, to do dynamic value, like you don't know the values of the struct?
Oh,
yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
So,
I'd say
so
it's
you,
pretty easy.
you space pad your insert statement, and then you generate the offsets to where your space padding for each field is. And then you can at runtime.
Oh, no, he's way overcomplicating this. Go ahead, you
I
describe
actually
it
am not
stuff.
clear on what was the question? What are you trying to
So like,
do here?
I guess, could you, you're saying like you need to have the struct has to be like at compile time. Is there a way that you do it at runtime?
Insert statement?
Yeah.
Yes, as long as you store well, actually, you don't need the field names. You would need the table name, right, at runtime. But the values you can do at runtime. And this part isn't anything novel, but this sort of is.
Yeah.
Again, you could do it with macros.
Yeah, you can just loop over the numbers and spit it out.
Insert statement, Matt, missing the end.
Yeah, it is missing the closing parenthesis and a semicolon. Yes. Yeah, Chris.
So I'm kind of picturing in a production system, you could do kind of a two-step where there's the const eval function that generates what I'm picturing would probably be like a std format string. Yeah. And then you would have a separate call pretty trivially just to dump the values into that std format call with the format string that you generated at compile time by reflecting over the members. Is that how you picture this?
That's a really
Possibly
good way.
used.
That's a really good assessment of why this is useful, because if you wanted to,
It's like zero, nothing has changed when you update the struct. Everything is defined once.
yes, if you change something about the underlying type and you need to insert more stuff, you would have to change a format string in your code as well. But now you can say generate that format string. Yeah.
It's pretty normal working with databases to have series of migration files. Can you reflect from migration files into types instead of reflecting from types into SQL?
Can you very briefly explain what a migration file is? I'm not familiar.
It's the file of SQL commands that modifies the structure of your
Oh,
database.
specifically for, yes. Yes,
Wait, are you saying load the SQL commands and then?
No, you take the SQL commands as input at compile time.
generate aggregate, as long as
types.
what you want
Because
is aggregate
the
types.
type structure,
Yes.
yeah, the
You're talking about
structures.
like pound
You don't want
embed
to
your
write the
file.
structs in your
And that gives
compile
you
language.
like a list of strings or something if you're clever.
Yes.
Oh,
I
that's
feel like you could do
terrifying.
that.
You could take
Well, that's what we
arbitrary
did.
amounts of text and load it into your thing at compile time. and turn it into a
Because you
result.
want.
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna cause problems.
I have some more fun stuff to show.
Compiler that already program matches the types that are
Right,
in
I
your
mean,
data.
it's just, it's interesting.
Well, what if you make the program?
You could let non-programmers.
The next thing I'm going to show, which is very similar to this, we're not going off on a huge tangent, but there's something
This is not.
really cool, visually, that we can do with this. Who here is familiar with GraphViz or the dot language? Seems like we could generate, GraphViz, graphs from like C++ types, right?
It's a pretty.
This could be interesting.
Yeah. So, I have this function, which again is constable, generate dot for types. Dot is just the language that GraphViz uses. And then this is sort of just this is actually like the preamble, and this is kind of the postamble. I did remember the closing bracket this time because if I didn't, it would break. But we're making a directed graph, and we're taking a parameter pack of types, right? And we start with a big old char array, which I probably could be using string and then turning it into a something that you could store at compile time, but this works.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine for a demo. So what we do is we take this and based on the attributes of the type, for example, for each of the bases, we give it a directed edge to its parent type. And we can look at the members and tell whether they're public, protected, private. Again, as long as we're using, I think we're using the unchecked access context here. Yeah. So we can see the private members. And oops, did I just change something? I think I did. Anyway, it's compiled already. So if I run this, we're going to get something that looks like we could put it into a GraphViz renderer. And I actually already have it on disk here as example.dot. And we'll see how well this works. Actually, sorry, should open it. Control B. Oh, there we go. Yep. So
Make it bigger.
sorry, I need to open the example. Oh shoot. I need to open the example source file. So
Hey, I went by Fuku's already.
yeah. Okay, so we have all these types that just they exist to show what the rendered graph looks like. And then all we do is we call generate dot for types. And remember, it's a parameter pack. So these are all, I'm actually going to close this for a second. These are all the types we want in the graph.
Okay.
And then we call right sized to keep, remember, this will spit out a, 32 kilobyte char array. So we don't want to store that in the binary. So we cut it to its length. And then we output that when we run the program. Yeah.
Well, they're the static array function that you're using?
Yeah.
You can use that for string data. There's a two-static string function as well, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, you don't actually need my two-step anymore.
Okay. Still, I learned a lot implementing this.
Absolutely. Did you, I don't think I'm seeing it on their example. Did you aggregate types and then chase the types? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So like have like member access demo contain something of type derived. So then you can also have that extra dashed pointer. That would be neat. You could do that too.
Yeah, you're talking about like chasing the types down from the member fields?
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can do that. That would make this graph a little more complicated.
Well, yeah, sure.
But yeah, and I foresee stuff like this. I mean, this on its own is not good enough documentation, but having something like this automatically generated as part of your documentation would be huge.
And where do you put the type now?
I see you manually listing the types that you wanted to add to this graph. I suppose there's no way to ask the compiler for all the types to find in the current file or the current translation unit.
Unfortunately, I'm not actually 100% sure if you can iterate the types in the namespace.
You can.
You can,
Okay, if you can, yes.
Namespace,
including the global.
you pick the namespace and you say, give me
Yes,
everything.
the one thing you absolutely cannot do is all of the objects in the current scope. Excuse me. So I can't say, give me all the local variables in my current scope, which I really, really wanted to do. I'm going to do that. Okay.
Make me look up.
Okay. Anyways, I apologize. I wanted to make this occupy the entire screen, but I am apparently bad at using IDEs.
Jason, I have an idea for that.
What's that?
I have an idea for that.
For how to do it? I tried and I asked the bots and they also said it was impossible.
Set the
Can you
DOS
also
badge
take a
so fast.
lambda with the reference scope and then ask the members? of
Is-
the-
is-
You have to use the thing inside the Lambda for
Actually,
actually
the
the
DOS
hard
badge with the GDF build script.
No.
It's not, it's just kind of.
No. Okay, sorry. Anyways, another really, oh, this one's short. This is a really funny thing you can do with, reflection, which again, probably possible with macros. Sorry, let me close this and then reopen it to make it a little more readable. It's called validator. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling in reflection, the reflection API, of course, but then also compile time regular expressions. And I have a regular expression called camel case in camel case, which gives me the notice the notice the capital letters here. That's the key difference. And then I have one for snake case, which allows me to have underscores. And what do I do here? I have a function called validate class members, which looks at all the members of the type. And first, there you get some other things along with that. So I make sure it has an identifier and is user declared. But then I call compile time regex match my pattern. And if it doesn't match, we static assert.
Hold on.
Don't you have this recording?
At some point, I'm sending it to Hannah.
Oh, you're asserting code style.
Yeah.
That's
I
incredible.
like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's brilliant.
This just feels like
I
a
really
routine
wanted to
exercise.
And so this,
It's compile time relationship.
well, I'm only
Without
I'm
having
only
to ask
checking one
anybody
thing.
about it first,
So,
I'll just put something.
as you can see, this works.
No,
I,
we'll be fine.
Ninja, no work to do. I'm gonna go into my example valids here. And notice, so I have,
No, that's what I've got on.
I have two test classes. The first is all camel case, the second is all snake case.
Oh,
So the first one, I validate class members with camel case. The second one, I validate with snake case. What's gonna happen if I change this to snake case?
It won't compile.
Correct. We had a static assert.
I want to see the error. That's so
They
sad.
won't.
I wish I could show you the error better.
If
There's a mess in there, but you can see that the message type does not match pattern.
So, well,
Yeah.
you had, in your if statement, you had has identifier. What class members don't have identifiers? The only one I can think of is unnamed bit fields.
Constructors, right?
No,
The constructors are considered not to have identifiers?
they're not.
I vaguely remember running into that. I think I could be wrong. Maybe I thought I was running into constructors, but maybe it was actually operators that didn't. Yeah, certainly.
Special things. Like a cat around the thing.
Well, and what happens if you reflect over a union?
That is something I did not try.
You're starting special.
So what is the code development or?
That's hilarious.
Sorry.
I'm not complaining, I'm just asking. Like, has identifier there?
I'm
Why
gonna
do we
zoom
need to
out
say has
one
identifier?
click.
Has identifier.
Hope that's still readable.
Or not has identifier.
What class members do not have identifiers?
No, it's asking if the type has.
No, it's going over the members of the, yeah, that's what
Yeah, so it might be construct.
that sounds like a riddle for the birds.
I don't know the
True.
answer.
Okay, I'm gonna show you one more thing, I think.
Maybe it's something that reflection is defined.
Right, yeah.
Is type not reserved as a keyword? It's a valid variable name.
I don't know.
C++.
Again, birds. I have one more really funny thing to show you. that was sort of the reason that I made this talk. I was like, wait, you can do this? So remember earlier, I stated that, so you can define aggregate types, right? You can take, string this input in your reflected, in your reflection code in the reflection domain, and you can make decisions based off that. And you can also, I only learned about the compile time regular expression library, Source-ery, from writing this code, and I wish I discovered it sooner because it's an amazing library. You can run regex checks in const eval contexts. Can you parse another language into an aggregate type at compile time?
I'm gonna say yes.
Yes, you're gonna say yes.
Do that 10 years ago.
So I'm really quick gonna go back to the slides, because when I was doing research for this, I was like, well, okay, has there been any attempt to turn JSON into C++? And I stumbled across this,
Well, yeah, that's.
which
you
is
know,
made by that guy, Julian Merrick and Max Charlington, who I don't know, but Jason.
Julian has never been here. At some point, you guys know his name, right? He's been involved in Energy Plus since forever.
Turn JSON.
But what Jason's project does is it creates a variant tree based on an input JSON object, and or array. I forget whether that works. But what we're trying to do is actually like create an aggregate type via splicing. And one thing I've done to simplify things is I'm not going to accept nested JSON. I'm just going to take a JSON object, and I want the key names to be the names of your members, if that makes sense. So I'm going to show the user code to you first. If you're really interested in this, I'm sure you'll check it out, because again, this is all published online. But if I go to example from JSON, so we'll start quite simple. We have a raw string. It's a multi-line string that kind of starts here. That just has a unnamed JSON object with foobar baz, right? Again, we can't set the name of our type via reflection. So I'm going to declare JSON type 1. And then in a const eval context, I'm going to call this function in my header called define aggregate from JSON with the reflection of the undefined type, right? We're giving it the type to fill out, and then the JSON string. Does that sort of make sense, at least what, like, how we're using this?
What is the naked const eval?
The reflected type is mutable.
It just means that
File scope
the const eval block, everything inside is.
Yeah.
When did that come into existence?
That's being.
Yep.
What?
You can just be like, this stuff is const eval.
That's for this use case.
Yeah.
Who told me that?
So, I have a helper function here just for printing called expect JSON type. Gives us a type name and
Operator thing.
which operator.
Never mind, just go ahead,
Yeah.
keep going, yeah.
They're using stream operators here because std print can't be used from inside a const eval context. Not that everything I'm doing here is in a const eval context, but it was just easier to import IOStream and do things the streamy way. Anyways, so again, remember JSON type 1 was the foobar baz. Again, we never defined it ourselves. We only declared it, and then we threw it a string that presumably is correct JSON. But now we should be able to print each field, if you can believe that.
Huh.
Yeah. There's a few things here. We're only looking at the first. Sorry, I should have done that. But I didn't want to look at the ports. It's the last thing I wanted to look at. So this is the start of our first helper function. And again, it prints all of the fields and it prints, you can't, make the default constructor give you those values. But I have a separate function called parse JSON, which is giving it the member values from our original JSON. So now we have created an aggregate type that has the JSON object key names as the member names, and the key value, the values of the keys as the member values. So it's a little crazy to look at, but this is stuff you could do with reflection. Yeah, Andrew.
What happens if you throw invalid JSON?
Let's try it. And I apologize. I have to go back and fix the validator because it occurred to me I shouldn't compile the code. Trailing comma or something? Oh, geez. Probably. Hold on. Oh, you mean add to the add a trailing comma to the JSON? Okay, I don't actually remember whether I correctly reject trailing commas in the regex for the JSON.
Would it be correct to reject it?
I
think it's allowed in JSON.
But I could do this. It might be not recommended. I don't remember the. Okay, let's.
A lot of parsers accept it because it's so common.
Oh, I thought it was.
What if
strictly not
you,
allowed.
just like,
It's not allowed according to spec.
just like unquote string type?
We got
Or
the same
unquote string
character.
Well, okay, so what I did was you might have missed it, but I changed that curly bracket to a square bracket. And it gives us a sort of, it doesn't really make sense as an error message until you realize what's happening is it's failing to parse the regex. And so it's not defining the type. So I think it's yelling about, why is it yelling about, oh, sorry. I have two types here and I edited the JSON for the second type. That's why it's yelling about JSON type 2. So if I change this back and then change this, it'll yell about JSON type 1. And again, this is all done with CTRE. I have all of these. I have what constitutes an object is, again, those curly brackets, and that's what was failing before. I have all of these individual regexes, regi for types. I have a master regex for key value. It's kind of, it takes a type. We check that the word here is a type, and then a colon, possibly white space, and then a value, right? So all of this is checked. Again, it doesn't accept nested objects right now. I think you absolutely could make it accept nested objects. The problem is if you start defining multiple types that way, you have to accept a parameter pack of types and the number of types has to match.
Also, aggregates with aggregates inside them are a pain to initialize.
I'm going to take your word for that because I have not tried, and yeah. You said something earlier. Would you like a power bank? And I think with that, that's all I wanted to show you, really. Does anyone have any overall questions?
I had a quick question just on the.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed your hand earlier.
For the member, the struct members, like, can you LSP actually see what type those are, like? Or,
Depends on what you mean by see what type they are, but yeah, so it uses,
so
let's take the Boolean regex, for example.
Okay.
It matches true or false. And it happens in this master function that's called determine value type, which checks all of these matches in order. First, it checks for a numeric. If it can't match, which is JSON numeric is
Disgusting.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if does numeric include like the floating point decimal stuff?
It only does.
Arbitrary precision floating point plus integers plus scientific notation.
I am only handling integers, to be clear. This is not a complete, well, it is a complete mess, but it's not a complete implementation. So, but yes, to answer your question, I am at least doing some semblance of handling the type that a particular JSON value matches to. And if it doesn't match to any type, for example, if you tried to like use single quotes instead of double
Could you go to
quotes.
the, from JSON, or the actual example, like from JSON file?
Yeah.
So, and then just hover over one of the struct members at the bottom, like after you.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
You mean-
like if you do like opt1 dot food, like or bar, like can LSP like see what type that is? Like, for the
oh,
developer?
you mean like claim format?
Yeah. Or like,
Or
yes,
claim, yeah,
claim-
sorry,
claim D
claim
for- yeah.
D,
Yeah,
yes.
like, can that,
I'm gonna say no, but
okay.
Well, claim E doesn't support reflection yet.
Yeah, but also it's the
Yeah.
opaque type, right?
it's what, right?
Is it the opaque type?
It should
I'm not
be,
sure.
It's not,
if you
because
just static
Well,
assert
there's been-
that the type is the same.
it's opaque to like the human. It's all kind of fuzzy.
Cause yeah, that's just like,
Yeah,
I
it's
just
at
wanna
the
make sure, cause like, it'll be so annoying.
It's at the
back.
back of the box. It's just lowest. Yeah,
Fields
so it
you
should
build
be-
a type of.
It's null.
I spent a fair bit of time on the side here looking at whether any other language has compile time reflection. And lots of languages have compile time type things they can do, but as far as I can tell, C++ is the only language. There's compile time reflection.
It's fascinating.
Ben
So
keeps saying Lisp. Ben keeps saying Lisp.
This doesn't.
I
have
would
it.
believe
Just
that some
expose it
form
to
of
it.
Lisp
He
has,
might be
yeah.
right about that.
I was wondering about Zig.
Zig is like the next,
So you
Zig has the
declared
most features available.
JSON type 1.
but yeah,
I think
this is
the
all JSON type
compile
1 and then I have JSON
reflection,
type 2.
But it
stuff.
doesn't expose the ability to use.
Why did you
do that,
board
so it just
declare
gives you a
there
ton of
instead of just
utilities
declaring
to
it
work with
inside
types
your
of
parse JSON function?
That wouldn't expose it to the global namespace.
Doesn't matter.
That's a requirement of reflection is that the type exists and then you change it. You can't create new types, right?
No, but you can still create.
I see what JSON. I knew that was gonna happen at some point. I see what JSON is saying.
Just take, yeah, I give you like a high degree of probability. If you literally cut and paste that,
So in here, right?
no,
No,
in the
just-
from JSON function.
No, that, you're right, that would work. Yeah.
So you don't have to for declare these things, the from JSON type thing, and then each time you call it, it would be a unique thing anyhow. Because the from JSON,
I'd still have to copy all the, I'd have to have the constant available.
yeah, but you put that inside the from JSON function, and then you'd use auto everywhere, because it would just be truly an opaque type at that point.
Yeah.
Don't pretend to the user that they know what's going on.
This should, let's see, I fixed the object for the JSON object.
For something like this, they don't.
Where my, names aren't, yeah. I think I messed something else up by.
Yeah, whatever. Something to consider. The burns.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you want I think I asked you if you.
I got one.
Oh, yeah, yes, you got one. Did you want a power bank for telling me how to find the correct revision of this? Cool. Okay, well, thank you all.